The story of this forbidden anime begins with Natsumi welcoming Hajime at the door. She asks if he's there for Yui's cultural counseling and says she appreciates his hard work. However, she immediately apologizes because Yui isn't home that day. Hajime tells her there's no need to be sorry because he's actually there to ask for a favor from her. Natsumi is confused and asks if Yui got into trouble by any chance. Hajime says that's not the case at all, and even says that Yui has been doing really great lately. Hajime's sinister gaze then locks into Natsumi, who is somehow starting to feel a little restless, as if she's being put on the spot. Hajime then sees her wedding ring, and his eyes glow red, a sign that he has activated his secret power and used it on the unsuspecting housewife. Shortly after that, Natsumi takes Hajime to her husband's bedroom. Once there, Hajime says that to help with Yui's cultural counseling, it's also important to check Natsumi's condition. Natsumi immediately agrees, and even says that unless he explores the dungeon, he can only go so far with Yui's counseling. Hajime can't help but rejoice at how things are unfolding. Once again, his ultimate mind control skill ensures no one can reject him. Just like that, Natsumi gets ready to let Hajime inspect her cultural condition. She expresses her worry that even though Yui is doing great, she may stray from the right path. Hajime tells her not to worry because that's why he's giving her proper cultural counseling. Hajime's statement puts Natsumi's mind at ease. She says she'll cooperate as well, so he shouldn't hold back and teach her thoroughly. Then, without further hesitation, Natsumi opens the pink gate in front of Hajime, hoping it will be of some use to him as a reference. Not one to waste time, Hajime immediately gets to work on the fine specimen in front of him. He focuses on fiddling with the mechanical parts of the pink gate, and in no time manages to summon a flood of divine water from inside the dungeon. As for Natsumi, she doesn't shy away from letting out plenty of cultural sounds to acknowledge that Hajime is the best at what he does. In fact, she believes it's only natural given his line of work. With the pink gate fully opened, Hajime says it's time for the main event. He summons his sword hero and puts it on display in front of Natsumi, who is left dumbfounded by its imposing aura. The moment it dives into the dungeon, Natsumi immediately can't stop gasping for air as she's overwhelmed by its monstrous power. She now clearly sees how Yui lost her wits because of it. Strangely enough, Natsumi suddenly asks which dungeon is better, and Hajime plays it safe by saying he likes that the current dungeon feels more developed. Natsumi feels challenged, asking if he's implying that her dungeon is already eroded. Unwilling to let him look down on her, Natsumi unleashes her secret techniques, which she honed throughout the years. She tells Hajime they are techniques that only experienced dungeon holders have, ones who have their fair share of conquered sword heroes. Hajime says he can't believe that Natsumi was like that. She no longer hides under the facade of a boring housewife and proudly says she's a lady of culture too. With the rising ferocity of their cultural energies, Hajime loses control and accidentally spills a hefty amount of his mana. Several hours later, Natsumi continues to fill the room with plenty of loud cultural sounds as she's left in disbelief by Hajime's ability to explore dungeons without breaks. For the past few hours, he has been relentlessly painting the walls of the dungeon with his mana, and he's still not showing any signs of getting exhausted. Then, after showing off her karaoke skills and making him shower her with mana, Natsumi notices that the energy of Hajime's sword hero falters. She immediately points it out, which is a big mistake on her part, as it only fuels their rage even more. Hajime gathers energy from the land of the rising sword heroes and directs it towards the deepest regions of the dungeon before him. He then goes on to relentlessly dig deeper into the dungeon until he reaches its innermost sanctum. Once he's done that, he unleashes all of the mana he has gathered without thinking about the consequences. As for Natsumi, she seems to no longer care about the consequences either. The only thing she can think of is making sure that not a single drop of mana is wasted, because it would be rude to Hajime. Hajime shivers as he desperately holds on to Natsumi while his mana goes out of control in the dungeon. In response, Natsumi holds him dearly, assuring him that he can take his time because she's not going anywhere. While gasping for air, Natsumi thanks Hajime for all his hard work. She then says that if he ever needs her help again with Yui's cultural counseling, he shouldn't hesitate to visit and ask her for it. A few days later, Hajime finds himself being interrogated by Reina's mom, Reika. It seems she caught them in the midst of one of their cultural counseling session. Reika asks if they're dating, and if so, she believes that Reina's tastes in guys have significantly deteriorated. Then Hajime finally breaks his silence. He explains that it's all a misunderstanding and that he was only providing cultural guidance for Reina. He adds that for the sake of Reina's future, he needs to teach her how to wield the power of her dungeon properly. Reika is infuriated, not only by Hajime's skewed logic but also by his arrogant tone. She feels that he's only making fun of her and wants to put him in his place. However, Hajime has other plans. With a quick snap of his fingers, his ultimate mind control skills activate, and the strong-willed Reika immediately falls under his spell. She immediately acknowledges that he's a cultural counselor. However, she doesn't let him go right away. Instead, she points out that she has a right to ascertain his skills and declares that she wants to test them out herself. For a brief moment, even if she's already under his power, Reika finds herself questioning what's going on. She finds it strange that she feels like she shouldn't question Hajime's claims, even if he has nothing to back them up. Meanwhile, Hajime lets out a sinister smile and acknowledges that the only thing he has to do is prove his skills to Reika. So, shortly after that, Reika finds herself showing off her karaoke skills for Hajime's sword hero. Despite being under mind control, Reika still can't help but look down on Hajime, especially since he looks like he's getting overwhelmed by her pro-level karaoke skills. She thinks he's weak to have his mind melted by just that. She believes that he might be able to wrap someone like Reina in the palm of his hands, but not an experienced lady like her. More importantly, she thinks Hajime isn't fit to be Reina's cultural counselor, and she's determined to prove that. And just like that, Hajime lets out a loud groan as his sword hero accidentally steps on Legos and spills a hefty amount of its mana. Reika acknowledges that the build of Hajime's sword hero and the amount of mana it was able to release are good enough. So now, she wants to proceed to the next test. This time, she wants to see how well Hajime's sword hero is when it comes to dungeon exploration. As Reika gets ready to open the pink gate of the dungeon, Hajime can't help but admire her glorious twin personalities that are already in full display before him. He grins and tells Reika that she's welcome to test his sword hero as much as she wants. Of course, given her attitude, Reika gets irritated by it, thinking that he's not taking the test seriously. However, much to her surprise, the walls of the dungeon suddenly constrict as Hajime's sword hero makes its grand entrance inside. Reika is surprised and can't help but let out a loud cultural squeal. To cope, she quickly convinces herself that it's because no one has visited the dungeon for a while now. However, deep inside her heart, she knows Hajime's sword hero is a different beast entirely, one she has never encountered before throughout her life. She then gets annoyed when Hajime tries to take the initiative, but he says he's simply taking the test seriously. With a condescending tone, he asks if he's already passed, and even says it was surprisingly not that big of a deal. Feeling looked down upon after hearing Hajime's statement, Reika gets serious and swears he'll make sure he won't be able to stand once she's done with him. She uses some forbidden cultural techniques she's honed through the years and, in no time, makes Hajime's sword hero accidentally spill its mana again. Reika stands proud, feeling victorious after proving that Hajime was all talk. She then leaves while telling him he isn't fit to be Reina's cultural counselor. Then, just as she's about to leave the room, Hajime stops her and asks where she's going. Reika is surprised because Hajime, who was pretty much passed out a few seconds ago, already looks like he's fully recovered. What she doesn't know is that he has rapid regeneration. It's an ultimate skill that lets him recover his energy and mana instantly. Hajime then says he's going to take things seriously and goes on to let his sword hero dive into the dungeon again. This time around, fear has already gripped Reika. That's because she finally realized that she was underestimating Hajime all along. After that, Reika is pretty much done for and can do nothing but fill the room with plenty of her heavenly cultural sounds. Meanwhile, Hajime is no longer holding back as he lets his sword hero relentlessly rampage and release its mana inside the dungeon over and over again. Eventually, he asks Reika if he has already passed the test. In a final act of defiance, she says she'll only accept him if he manages to give her the population +1 buff. Since he's a gentleman, Hajime doesn't hesitate to give Reika what she demands. He unleashes his full power and empties all of his mana reserves all at once. As a result, Reika has a convulsion as her mind goes blank due to the overwhelming amount of mana flooding the dungeon. While Hajime stands victorious and admires his handiwork, Reina is silently watching from the door. She's in disbelief to see Hajime dismantle and break Reika's strong will. It's clear that she never thought she would see her in such a sorry state.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.